He spent 15 years explaining, arguing, and trying to convince his wife to respect his boundaries. Then one day he stopped talking completely and did something that changed everything in 48 hours. You won't believe what happened next. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. What I'm about to share with you will save you years of frustration and wasted energy trying to get a woman to listen to you. This is about the fatal mistake every man makes when a woman does not listen, and the one thing that actually works. His name was Lawrence, 59 years old, married to his wife Sandra for 32 years, and for 31 of those years, Lawrence had been making the same mistake over and over again. Every time Sandra did something that bothered him, Lawrence would talk to her about it. He would sit her down, explain his concerns, lay out his reasoning, present his case like a lawyer in a courtroom. And Sandra would nod, agree, promise to change, and then she would do the exact same thing the next week. For 3 decades, this pattern repeated. Sandra would go shopping and max out credit cards. Lawrence would explain why that was problematic, show her the budget walker through their finances. She would apologize and promise to be more careful. And the next month, more credit card debt. Sandra would make plans without consulting Lawrence. Big plans, dinner parties, vacation commitments, family obligations. Lawrence would explain that he needed to be included in those decisions. She would say, "Of course you are right. I will check with you next time." And the next week, she would commit them to something else without asking. Sandra would criticize Lawrence in front of their friends. Little comments about how he never helps around the house, how he forgets things, how he's getting old. Lawrence would pull her aside later and explain that it hurt his feelings, that it was disrespectful. She would say, "I was just joking, do not be so sensitive." And the next gathering, more jokes at his expense. Lawrence came to see me because he was exhausted. He said, "I have had the same conversations 1,000 times. I have explained, I have reasoned, I have begged, and nothing ever changes. What am I doing wrong?" And I asked him a simple question. I said, "What happens when she ignores what you say?" Lawrence looked confused. "What do you mean I tell her again? I try to explain it differently. I make sure she understands." "No," I said. "I mean, what consequence does she face? What actually changes in her life when she ignores your boundary?" Lawrence sat there for a long moment, and then he said, "Nothing. Nothing changes. I just get upset and we have another conversation." And that is when I told Lawrence what I'm about to tell you. The reason women do not listen to you is not because they do not understand you. It is because there is no reason to listen. Let me explain. Men think that if they just explain things clearly enough, logically enough, reasonably enough, women will understand and change their behavior. But that is not how it works. Because women are not listening to your words. They are watching your actions. And when your words say, "This is unacceptable," but your actions say, "I will tolerate it anyway," they learn very quickly that your words do not matter. You are teaching her not to listen to you every single time you explain without enforcing, every time you argue without acting, every time you complain without creating consequences. You are literally training her to ignore you. Lawrence had been doing this for 31 years, thousands of conversations, thousands of explanations, and 0 consequences. So Sandra had learned correctly that Lawrence's words were just noise, that she could nod along, say the right things, and then do whatever she wanted because nothing would actually happen. I told Lawrence, "You need to stop talking, and you need to start acting." He said, "What do you mean I should just ignore the problems?" "No," I said, "you should stop discussing the problems and start creating consequences for them." And then I told him exactly what to do. I said, "The next time Sandra spends money without consulting, you do not argue, do not explain. Just quietly open a separate bank account and move your money there. When she asks why, tell her once calmly, 'You have shown me that you cannot be trusted with joint finances, so we no longer have joint finances,' and then do not discuss it further." Lawrence looked terrified, "But that will cause a huge fight." "Good," I said. "A fight means she finally understands that you are serious. Right now she thinks you are all talk. You need to show her you are not." Lawrence went home and did nothing for 2 weeks, because the idea scared him. He was afraid of conflict. He was afraid of making things worse. He was afraid Sandra would leave. But then Sandra did something that pushed him over the edge. She booked a 2-week trip to visit her sister without asking Lawrence. Did not check his schedule, did not see if he could get time off work, just booked it and told him they were going. And Lawrence, for the first time in 31 years, did not argue. He didn't explain. He didn't try to convince her why this was wrong. He simply said, "You can go. I will not be joining you." Sandra was shocked. "What do you mean you will not be joining me? I already bought the tickets." "Then you wasted your money," Lawrence said calmly. "I did not agree to this trip. You did not ask me, so I am not going." "But I cannot go alone." "What will I tell my sister? That is your problem to solve," Lawrence said. "You made this decision without me. You can deal with the consequences without me." And then he walked away. Sandra followed him, getting more and more upset. "You're being ridiculous. You're overreacting. It is just a trip." Lawrence did not respond. He sat down and opened his laptop. Sandra stood there waiting for him to engage, to argue, to explain. But Lawrence said nothing, and after 10 minutes of trying to get a reaction, Sandra stormed off to the bedroom. The next day, Sandra canceled the trip. She came to Lawrence and said, "Fine, I canceled it. Are you happy now?" And Lawrence said something that shocked her. He said, "This is not about me being happy. This is about you making decisions that affect both of us without consulting me, and I will not participate in those decisions. If you want to make plans for us, you need to include me in the planning. If you do not, I will not be part of them." And then he went back to what he was doing. No long explanation, no argument, no negotiation, just a clear statement of consequence and then moving on. Sandra did not know what to do with that. For 3 decades, she had been able to wear Lawrence down with arguments, tears, or justifications. But this time, there was nothing to argue with. Lawrence was not mad. He was not upset. He was just done. And that terrified Sandra, because for the first time, she realized she might actually lose him. Over the next 3 months, Lawrence applied this principle to everything. When Sandra criticized him in front of friends, he did not pull her aside for a conversation. He simply left the gathering, drove home, and went to bed. When Sandra asked where he had gone, he said calmly, "I will not stay in situations where I am disrespected." No lecture, no explanation, just action. When Sandra made plans without him, he did not argue. He just did not participate. When she asked why he was not coming, he said, "You did not include me in the decision, so I am not included in the activity." And then he made his own plans. When Sandra overspent on credit cards, Lawrence did not show her budgets or explain finances. He opened a separate account, moved his income there, and gave Sandra a fixed monthly amount for household expenses. "This is your budget," he said. "If you run out, that is your problem to solve. I will not be covering your overspending anymore." And you know what happened? Sandra changed. Not because Lawrence explained things better, not because he convinced her with logic, but because she finally experienced consequences. She realized that Lawrence was serious, that he was not going to tolerate disrespect anymore, that she could either treat him with respect or lose him, and she chose to treat him with respect. Lawrence came back to see me 6 months later. He said, "I cannot believe how different things are. Sandra checks with me before making plans. She asks before spending money. She stopped making jokes about me in public, and I did not have to have a single long conversation about any of it." That is the power of action over words. Now let me tell you about another man. His name was Malcolm, 55 years old, dating a woman named Teresa for 3 years. Teresa had a pattern of keeping male friends who were clearly interested in her. They would text her late at night. They would invite her out for drinks. They would make comments that crossed boundaries. And Malcolm would tell Teresa it bothered him. He would explain why it was disrespectful. He would ask her to set boundaries with these men. And Teresa would say, "They are just friends. You are being insecure. I can have male friends." And nothing would change. For 3 years this went on, Malcolm getting more and more frustrated, Teresa dismissing his concerns over and over, until one day Malcolm stopped talking about it, and he started going out with his female friends, not cheating, not being inappropriate, just having coffee, going to lunch meeting for drinks. And suddenly, Teresa had a problem. "Who is this woman you had coffee with? Why are you texting her? Why did not you tell me you were meeting her?" And Malcolm said calmly, "She is just a friend. Why are you being insecure? I can have female friends." Teresa was furious. "That is different." "How is it different?" Malcolm asked. And Teresa could not answer, because it was not different. She just did not like experiencing what she had been putting Malcolm through. Within 2 weeks, Teresa set clear boundaries with her male friends. She stopped responding to late-night texts. She stopped going out for drinks with them. She stopped entertaining their attention. Not because Malcolm convinced her with words, but because she experienced what he had been experiencing. And she didn't like it. That is how you get a woman to listen, not by explaining, not by arguing, but by creating consequences that she actually feels. Now let me be very clear about something important. This is not about being petty. This is not about revenge. This is not about manipulation. This is about self-respect. If a woman consistently ignores your boundaries, disrespects you, or dismisses your concerns, you have two choices. You can keep talking, keep explaining, keep hoping she will eventually understand. Or you can stop talking and start acting. You can protect yourself. You can remove yourself from situations where you are not respected. You can create consequences that make it clear you are serious. Lawrence did not do what he did to hurt Sandra. He did it to protect himself. He was tired of being disrespected. He was tired of his words meaning nothing. He was tired of feeling powerless in his own relationship. So he took his power back. Not through anger, not through control, but through boundaries with teeth. Malcolm did not date other women to make Teresa jealous. He did it to show her that the standard she was setting for herself applied to him too. That he was not going to live by one set of rules while she lived by another. And when she experienced what he had been experiencing, she finally understood. Here is what most men do not realize. Women test boundaries constantly, not because they are malicious, but because they need to know if you are serious. They need to know if your boundaries are real or if they are just preferences you will abandon the moment she pushes back. And the only way to show that your boundaries are real is to enforce them. Not with anger, not with threats, but with calm, consistent action. When you say no and mean it. When you walk away from disrespect, when you stop participating in situations that violate your values, that is when she finally listens. Because that is when she finally believes you. Lawrence is still married to Sandra. Their relationship is better than it has been in decades. Sandra respects him now in a way she never did before. Not because he explained things better, but because he showed her through his actions that he would not tolerate disrespect. Malcolm and Teresa are still together too, and Teresa now understands that Malcolm's boundaries are real, that he will not beg for respect, that he will simply remove himself from situations where respect is not present. So here's what I want you to take away from this. If a woman is not listening to you, stop talking, stop explaining, stop trying to convince her with logic, and start acting. Create consequences, enforce boundaries, protect yourself, not to change her, but to respect yourself. And if she values you, she will change her behavior to keep you. And if she does not value you, you will discover that before you waste more years of your life. Either way, you win. Because you stop being powerless. You stop being ignored. You stop sacrificing your self-respect for a relationship that does not respect you. If this resonated with you, do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell, share this with another man who needs to hear it, because the truth you just heard most men will never figure out. They will spend decades talking, explaining, begging for respect, and they will wonder why nothing ever changes. Do not be that man. Be Lawrence. Be Malcolm. Stop talking, start acting, and watch how quickly things change. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself, and remember, your actions speak louder than your words. Make sure they are saying what you actually mean.